There's nothing really special about this shirt. If you are a brand or a designer for a brand, I would say definitely don't take notes from this to create your product. So would I say this is good value for $58? Wagwan, Delilah. All right, Noah, what do you got for me this week?
Got something a little special for you this time.
Okay, OVO. Let's see what we got here. Damn, this is a thick ass bag. So this is from the retail store. So a lot of you guys don't know, we're actually based in Toronto. So this is a hometown wrapper, hometown brand, but I'm gonna still give a very impartial review. $58 US. This is garment dye, generic clear plastic poly bag. As a brand, I think a lot of retail brands, they don't pay attention to this, but if you are an online brand, packaging is so important because it allows you an opportunity to, again, own a part of your customer's day and create an experience that brings them into the world that you're kind of crafting for them. So something like this, you're gonna get from your supplier maybe 5 cents. Spending a little more to like 15 cents, you can get into like really crazy customizable bags that really embody your brand in its entirety. You'll have to go up in volume. A lot of these bags are like 5,000, 10,000 units minimums, but at 15, 20, even like 30 cents, that doesn't really translate to a crazy amount for a brand to have and establish an experience for your customers. If you guys want to learn a lot more about packaging, let me know. We can do an entire video on that. There's the bag for that. What do we have here? Branded tissue. This would have cost an additional 2 cents to have OVO branded tissue instead of this generic white one. And for products like this, those two little things makes it feel so much more special when it doesn't add that much to your product cost and doesn't take away from your margin that much. So I always encourage spend a little bit more to customize this stuff. Push that over there. So we have a mineral wash tee. So when you are mineral washing, you get this kind of splotchiness. What they do is they tumble it into like a giant tumbler with sponges mixed with this mineral acid wash. They're really interchangeable terms. And this being a little bit, it's white, but a little, I think there's actually a little wash as well. It seems like there's a mild reddish tone here, might be very subtle. So when you're doing a mineral wash, you can either use potassium permanganate or basically chlorine bleach, and they're gonna give different effects. If you use potassium permanganate, it's gonna be a little redder, and if you use essentially chlorine bleach, it's gonna have a little more white effect. And you can always tell the splotchiness. It's gonna be random because they use those sponges. You'll get hard lines like this in the design. That's where the garment's just folded over when it's being mineral washed. Another thing I've noticed here too, it says this has been garment dyed using a special process to achieve its color. Garment dyeing is like really hot right now, especially in streetwear. Everyone wants kind of garment dyed clothes. So garment dyeing itself is actually not the best process to dye clothing. It's much better to dye the fabric and then to cut the clothing, because you can control for dimensional stability and color a lot better. But what garment dyeing allows brands to do is do really small capsule collections. And you can garment dye one shirt if you want. Whereas if you're milling fabric to dye a special color, you might have to hit 100 kilograms for the MCQ, so minimum color quantity. And that's just what's required for that machine to run. But a lot of brands are doing garment dyeing. That's why this is probably really hot. This is one of the hottest items right now because it's a garment dyed shirt. But usually when you are garment dyeing items, you'll see when you get to the thickest part of the seams, it should be white. If it is black, what they probably done, or what they may have done, is they could have used a black fabric and put it through this process, the mineral washing, to still get this effect. But we're here to examine clothes. We're taking apart. We're not gonna make any assumptions. So we'll find that out later. One thing I see here too, for the main label, this is what happens if you, and I think we did this on, was it the Kith item? I think the Kith item, that one was garment dyed, and you'll see the neck label. We'll put a clip in there. The neck label is nice and crisp and clean because they sewed it on after the process. This is what happens when you put it in before you do the mineral washing or garment dyeing. And what happens is all of the inks actually transfer, or the dyes transfer to these, and you get this you get this effect on your main label. And I think as a brand, if you're presenting a product, you should always present your main label, which is your brand, in a very clean and controlled aesthetic. Not like this. You can see here, because this is a woven label here for the made in China, it's already coming apart. And usually what happens when they do dyeing, garment dyeing or mineral washes, they actually have little baggies that you put on this stuff and then you rip off. You see here actually, there's little remnants of this little bag that they put on, but clearly the baggie that they put on didn't do its job. And you can actually see here where it failed first. This is gonna be the darkest. And this is where all of the dye stuffs and mineral washes seeped in and started coloring the main label first. And I think they only covered that one. So they only bagged the main label. They didn't bag the size label. They didn't bag this. So this was somewhat protected, and these two labels were full on exposed to the mineral washing / garment dyeing process. So as a brand, if you wanted someone under the neck label, you can, but understand that, you know, it's gonna look like this. And I don't think it looks the best. Another thing to consider too, the reason why they probably did this, because it's gonna be cheaper to do this. It's much cheaper to sew your shirt, put on your labels, send it to the garment dyeing factory or finishing factory. Then they do the process and then they pack it. If you were to have a label on top, what you'd have to do is have the shirt in its PFD state, go garment dyeing, mineral wash it, then bring it back to this cut and sew factory, then sew on the label. So if you're trying to pump out a product and, you know, increase your margin by a little bit, this is the reason why they did that. For the label inside here, this also has the little baggie, but the baggie here on the side too clearly didn't do its job because it's fully penetrated into this. All right, and then looking at the rest of the garment here, we obviously have the OVO embroidered on the chest here. Given the fact that this is so clean, even if so usually with embroidery, you're gonna use a different thread composition, usually polyester, and it takes on different dyes than a cotton. You wouldn't be able to get this clean of effect if it actually gone through the entire mineral washing process. So this tells me that they made the shirt, they sewed on all the labels, they sent it to the dye partner to process it to get this effect, then they still brought it back, or they sent it to an embroidery supplier to do the embroidery on a finished garment. That means that this over here was literally a step that either the designers didn't know that this was gonna happen and they thought that little bag was gonna be enough to protect it, or they just wanted to save a little bit to get the cost down. And you know, as designers for brands, this is something you have to consider all the time. If you ask a factory to get something done at a specific price point, they will get it done at that price point. A lot of times brands will say, I need you to get it for $1 cheaper, $2 cheaper, and then the price comes down and they think the price just magically came down. No, they're probably taking out steps to get that price you want. You need to approach factories and suppliers of saying, I want to get this done. These are the very specific parameters that I want to hit for my product. What is it going to cost? And then you work with a factory to develop a product. That is a proper product development cycle. When you go and you say, I want this for $5, again, they can change the thread, they can change the material, they can change everything to get it for you at $5. So never approach production process, especially if you are a small to even medium-sized brand going through that narrative. Obviously, don't let a factory rip you off, but never start with price. You know, one thing you will notice too, and this is how you know garment has been mineral washed, is the inside, you have this solid black. Only on the outside do you get that mineral wash, because when the garments are actually thrown into the tumblers, only the outside is going to be exposed to those sponges. So you're not going to get that effect on the inside, and you'll see only areas where you'll see the neck holes, probably armholes, and the bottom, where the mineral or the acid can actually get contact with. You're going to get some of that color blending, but the areas that are furthest away, such as the center of the chest, is going to be solid black. What else to see here? Tender overlock, and then 2-needle cover stitch. They did, at least they did the taping over the seam around the neck to the shoulder. We have a 1x1 rib for the neck, a little uneven, cover stitch on the neck. We work with a lot of different brands to create their collections. There's some products that you're gonna have that are really the hero products that are really there to just really push the brand forward and showcase what you can do. And then there's gonna be products that are purely revenue drivers. You take away this logo here, you take away like that, this is a very plain mineral wash t-shirt. So this is what I would say would be a revenue driver product. You see also here too, usually when you are doing mineral washes, you're gonna get a lot more effect near the seams just because they're stiffer. So when they do impact the sponges, they actually don't move as much. So you'll get a little bit more of the wash effect on those areas. Upon initial inspections, there's a few things I would say as a brand you should do differently again. Making sure you choose to highlight your brand's labels in the best way possible. And here we also have the OVO label. I do like how they put it on a separate ribbon. That is a nice little touch. Polyester rope here, enclosure, the OVO deboss, which is the raised with a gold foil stripe, and then their separate little label here. Put that off to the side. All right, so I'm gonna cut this up now. I'm gonna show you all the panel pieces you need to make a garment like this, as well as what I think this costs to make. But before we do, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, because I absolutely love the community we're building here. And I have some really exciting projects that we're working on in the future that I think you guys are gonna absolutely love and learn so much about. So let's dive in, but please subscribe. Actually, let's cut off all the labels first. So here's a sleeve here. Here's the ribbing. So this is how we're gonna be able to tell if this has really been garment dyed. Mind you, I've seen a lot of brands just not actually understand what the technical term of garment dyeing is, and they think anything to get this effect is garment dyeing, because a lot of brands, they don't know how manufacturing is done, and they just send off Illustrator files to a far off land and things just show up. I wouldn't put it past a brand to say this is garment dyed, even if it hasn't been actually garment dyed, just because they think the mineral effect is there. But this is gonna be one of the thickest seams here. So let's see here, let's open this up. I do see a little bit of white remnants here. Let's see if we can open this up even a little more. Don't see a lot of the telltale signs of being garment dyed. I do see a little, you know what? I do see a little bit of white here. So that is a way to see that if it has been garment dyed or not. You'll see here, it's at the neck binding. This is gonna be the thickest part. And if a garment is garment dyed, this is gonna be a great way to check it, because garment dyeing on a finished garment, it needs to penetrate fabric. For it to actually have penetrated this long, this has been in the garment dyeing process for quite a long time to get this dark of a black on the inside. So I would say for this particular brand, this is definitely garment dyed with a secondary step of mineral washing, but that's a great way to check. So here is the neck tape. You'll see here too, this is always gonna be a fact of when you are doing this kind of mineral wash, because the seams here are protected from the washing effects, you always get this darker line here, which is gonna be the base fabric before it goes into the processing step at the seams. There is the arms. All right, here's all the components you need to make this OVO garment dyed shirt. We have our front panel here with OVO owl embroidery. We have our back panel. We have our left and right sleeve. We have our neck ribbing, as well as our care labels and main tags and hang tags. All right, so now that you've seen the full breakdown, let's figure out what the GSM of this fabric is. GSM stands for grams per square meter. And I want to tell you what I think this costs to make in China. So 223. So 223, that means they were probably speccing either 220 or 225. One thing you're gonna have to keep in mind is when you are garment dyeing, and your factory actually should know this as well. When you're gonna be garment dyeing a shirt, because it's going through additional washes after it's been sewn, your factory is gonna have to calculate the shrinkage for that garment dyeing process, so your shirt shrinks to the size that you actually want it in. What I've seen a lot of brands do, I think this actually might have been how the cropped kind of phenomenon came in, is a lot of brands would spec their shirts pre-garment dyeing, and then they would garment dye, all the shirts shrink because they haven't accounted for the shrinkage, which is ended up all these short shirts, and now it's become a trend. But I would not have been surprised if that's how that trend accidentally came about. But let's recap here. We have a 58 USD shirt from OVO. This is a black garment dyed with a mineral wash here using chlorine bleach, so it's nice and white. Again, they get this effect using sponges. They sew it on all the labels prior to garment dyeing, which is not the best way to do it by any means. It's definitely the cheapest way to do it. And then they brought it back, or they sent it to another supplier to do the embroidery and bagging. So knowing that it's 220, 225 GSM, it's garment dyed. Again, this is a fairly basic t-shirt with embroidery on it. I would say this would cost around $7 to make in China. That would be what's called the FOB price, free on board. That means the factory's responsible of getting it to the port of export. If you're making this and sending it into the US, it's gonna be 24% duties and tariffs combined. That would be around $1.70 something in tariffs and duties into the US. In Canada, that's 22%, whatever 22% of 7% is. That brings your product cost around maybe $9 plus shipping, all in to their warehouses, maybe like $9 to $10 for this shirt, and they're retailing it for $58. It's around a 6x markup on this. This is just expensive merch, in my opinion. There's nothing really special about this shirt. This is, in terms of the design, this is literally just a basic t-shirt with an embroidery and a checklist of saying, send it to garment dyeing, send it to for mineral washing. This could have been a block or like a pattern for a shirt they've been running for years. I doubt they actually produce a special pattern for this shirt. So would I say this is good value for $58? I don't think so. I think if you want to rock something from OVO, then at least this is on trend. If you are a brand or a designer for a brand, I would say definitely don't take notes from this to create your product. There's a lot more products out there that have a lot more thought and attention put into the design and development process than this. I personally would say I wouldn't buy this, but let us know in the comments if you would, and let us know what other brands that you guys want to see us take up part in the show. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Until next time.